John Defterios is my former colleague with decades of experience. He knows OPEC more than is honest or healthy as our emerging markets editor. Now senior advisor with APCO, a communications and consultancy firm. John's in Lisbon. John, why would knowing that, if they produce more, price goes down, but they're not happy with OPEC and with their quota, why would they do something so destructive to OPEC and in such a fashion like today?
I don't think they see it, Richard, as destructive. I spoke to one senior advisor to the UAE in the last 2 hours. He said, let's describe it as strategic autonomy, the ability to make its own decisions going forward. This has been in kind of the rumor mill for the last 3 or 4 years, and the UAE was actually considering making this decision beforehand. For those of us who like to read the smoke signals, and I just came back from the region this morning. I was in the UAE and Riyadh for the last week. I heard hints of a realignment by the UAE, and I would kind of lean in and suggest this may be the first of other decisions by the UAE going forward. I think the smoke signals were the fact that there was a GCC summit in Jeddah today. The president of the UAE did not attend. He sent the foreign minister / deputy prime minister to that meeting. So many read a lot into that this decision was happening on the day of the GCC summit. And I think, Richard, they feel handcuffed in this current situation. Right. As Suhail Mazrui was suggesting in his interview, they've made a lot of contributions, but a lot of sacrifice. And being capped at 3.4 million barrels a day. Just think about this number here. At 3.3 million barrels a day at $90 a barrel, they make a lot less than they would at 5 million barrels a day. In fact, it's a $50 billion difference between 3.3 and 5 million barrels a day. That's the bottom line.
Okay, two things though, John. Firstly, I agree. The UAE has spent a great deal of money on its infrastructure and it's invested hugely and wants to get a return. But its cost of production is relatively low overall. Getting that money back, isn't this about getting market share at the cost of other OPEC members by doing this? But the risk, of course, is that if not a price collapse, you certainly have a downward pressure because of your pumping more.
Well, actually, I think this fits into a very interesting discussion about how long oil demand will stay high. Before this conflict that we saw in the Strait of Hormuz, demand was projected at 104 million barrels a day. I think this fits into the category of make hay while the sun is shining, Richard. The UAE sits on about 9% of proven reserves. They see demand holding up for at least till 2040, about 100 million barrels a day. But you see some projections that demand will drop to 80 million barrels a day by 2050. So they're saying, let's front load it right now, have the freedom to do so. And also, Richard, under the CEO, the group CEO of ADNOC, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, taking instructions from the president of the UAE, they wanted to invest billions of dollars, not only in raw crude and having a trading division, but to go downstream into petrochemicals where there's higher margins. So they don't want to be constrained by OPEC or OPEC plus for that matter.
Right. But ultimately, John, I mean, that's a very interesting point you raise about front loading. It's, as you say, make hay while the sun shines now. But the US becoming essentially the swing producer because it's so vast in its energy. And you are essentially going to end up with internecine warfare within the oil-producing countries of the Gulf. And everything that OPEC was originally designed to create is going to fall apart.
Well, you raise a very interesting point. There have been strains within OPEC ever since the shale revolution taking place. So you see the U.S. being the number one producer in the world. Last month, it was producing 13.5 million barrels a day. That's above Russia. It's above Saudi Arabia, number 2, number 3 in the world. That has profoundly changed the dynamics within OPEC right now. Right. And I know that the UAE position has been, Richard, why are we sacrificing when the U.S. is getting more market share? You talked about the low-cost producer. Onshore, we're looking at about $2 a barrel in the UAE. It's a low-carbon producer as well in terms of carbon capture and being efficient in that way, and $4 offshore. So I think their view is, why don't we have that independence right now? I think we also, one other point here is they don't they're not really happy at the pace the GCC is moving right now. They have a very different strategy, Richard, and that is, for example, on free trade. The UAE has signed 36 trade partnerships because the GCC hasn't moved fast enough. So I think both with the GCC and the Arab League, we should start thinking differently of how the UAE sees that relationship and sees its future. That's some of the discussions I've had over the last 7 days.
Great. John, good to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
So joining me now is Faisal Abbas. He's the editor-in-chief of Arab News. Good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure to be with you, Audie. Thank you.
So I think most of us hear about OPEC because it has such a say in the global supply. What does it mean when a country leaves? What can they take advantage of as a result? And does it actually affect the supply for the rest of us?
Well, look, to start with, it is, the United Arab Emirates is a sovereign state. It is absolutely their decision. To broadly define what OPEC does, it's a coalition of the willing, if you want, for countries coming together to try and stabilize energy markets. That is the core purpose of OPEC. This is why there are regulations in place. There are production caps. Sometimes they increase production, sometimes they lower productions. And the main aim is to stabilize the energy markets. As for the UAE deciding to leave, as I said earlier, it is their sovereign right. There has been precedent of other countries leaving OPEC, including countries from the GCC. But as I'm coming to you today from London, where I happen to be visiting, it's the equivalent of the United Kingdom deciding to leave Europe. It's completely within their rights, and they must have done their own calculations and costs and benefits.
But I want to know the context of this. We have the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed with this blockade on both sides. We have Saudi-UAE tensions, right, in the regions. Maybe they've always wanted to leave. And then just this morning, pretty much while you and I are talking, Donald Trump puts out this tweet, and it's an image of him, and it says, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." The image is doctored with him with a weapon in his hand. He says Iran can't get its act together, and that they don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon. This does not say to me that talks will resume soon, the Strait of Hormuz will open again, and oil will flow.
Well, I mean, allow me to unpack that. There's a lot there. First of all, you're rightly pointing out that some people might be reading that there is possibly geopolitical tensions behind the decision of the UAE leaving. As I said earlier, it's purely a mathematical economic decision, and unsurprising given the post-war economy many Gulf countries now have to face. In fact, President Trump just a few days ago is on the record saying that the U.S. is considering offering the UAE financial support. There's been talks about currency swap between the Emirati dirham and the U.S. dollar. This is not surprising that the UAE wants now to make decisions to help reshape its economy. Two factors are at play here. One, as you've alluded and we've seen in the clip earlier, there's been a shortage or a limitation of the ability of Gulf countries to export oil. The UAE produces around 5 million barrels a day. That's a lot to be held, to be constrained or to be held. The other fact is, like all Gulf countries, there has been a decision that no cost or effort should be spared in protecting citizens. And that meant, a decision to fire $4 million Patriot missile or $2 million Tomahawk missiles to bring down $20,000 Iranian drones every time they were fired, because the priority was to protect citizens and residents, not to mention the impact on tourism and business. So it's only natural for countries to take corrective measures or take measures that it is in their best interest to help rebuild their economy in such circumstances.
Well, we'll see what that means for the cartel and therefore for global production. Thank you for this context, Faisal. Thanks so much.